What's up everyone, I'm Twisted. Today we got a brand new comic, this time one about Xin's funeral in Demacia. The comic jumps right into the ceremony with narration by Yunara.
King Jarvan told me it is rare that a memorial service be held beneath open sky. The Hall of Valor is the final resting place for monarchs and martyrs alike.
Here we get a mention of the Hall of Valor, a location in the capital of Demacia we've seen before. As Yunara says, this is the final place for monarchs and martyrs.
But not for Xin Zhao. So beloved was the late seneschal that the people of the great city petitioned for a public ceremony, so all might pay their respects.
But Xin was not a mere monarch or soldier. He was beloved by the people of Demacia, and so his memorial is being held in the open sky.
By your leave, sire, we shall begin.
Tiana Crownguard objected, of course. She said it represented an unreasonable risk to palace security. She is a strong and capable leader, the head of her noble family, no less. She places Demacia's interests above all else. Yet she sees every new idea, every unfamiliar face, as a threat to the kingdom. There are many who appear to think this way. So perhaps the king is testing her now.
And here we can see Tianna Crownguard. Tiana is the sister of Garen and Lux's father. She is usually super strict, suspicious of everything and everyone. But this is usually out of a desire to keep her family and her people safe. Here Yunara makes a subtle nod to how Tiana is not the only one like this in Demacia. Demacia grows skeptical not just when it comes to magic, but also to outsiders in general. Something that's so against what they once stood for as a safe haven from the Rune Wars.
Apparently, she disliked Xin Zhao from the moment they met.
Tiana herself has always been like this. From our perspective, this is her character. She was present alongside King Jarvan III when they first accepted Xin Zhao. She was against it, of course, and even promised to kill Xin if anything ever happened to the king. But that's why her inclusion here is going to be important. Like Yunara said, this might be the king himself testing her.
People of Demacia, we stand together in sorrow this day. A hero has fallen, and the king himself mourns the loss of one he counted closest blood.
As you may know, Xin and Jarvan III were like brothers. He even helped train the prince, who too saw him as an uncle.
Sire, your people are with you. We all share in your grief. With the Lord High Marshal and our beloved prince, both abroad in support of our neighbors beyond the Argent Mountains, it falls to me to praise Xin Zhao and his deeds.
I love the art here. You can feel the king's pain in his expression so clearly. According to Tiana, both the prince and the High Marshal are currently abroad, beyond the Argent Mountains. This might seem surprising, as High Marshal is the title that we've come to associate with Tiana, but before gaining that title, she was the leader of the Dauntless Vanguard, a title that in the old present she passed down to Garen when she became the High Marshal herself. But none of this has happened yet, which is quite odd. According to Garen's novel, Tiana became Marshal 12 years before the novel itself, and this comic should take place around 7 to 8 years before the novel, so she should be the High Marshal by now, unless Marshal and High Marshal are different titles. Anyways, the current High Marshal should be Percival Bronze. This, plus the mention of Argent Mountains here, might indicate that this memorial is happening around the same time of the battle at the Gates of Mourning, where Bronze died. This happens shortly before Jarvan is wounded and saved by Shyvana. This means everything we've seen related to her has not happened yet, or is happening at the same time as this comic. This also means that the moments from the season cinematic might not all be happening at the same time, but it's best to wait for Shyvana's lore for us to be sure about that. This does explain why Shyvana and Xin have no interactions in-game. They have never met.
I have thought much of late about the most important lesson he taught me. Xin Zhao was not born among us, yet He chose to bind himself to Demacia with oath and blade. In the king's service, he became seneschal, steward of order and protector of the shieldless. His discipline was absolute, his loyalty beyond question. And he gave his life to defend our kingdom, and thus becomes a part of Demacia forevermore.
And here we finally see Tiana opening up, sharing how she and Demacia saw Xin. In the background we can see her niece, Lux. In Demacia Rising, in the conversation between her and the prince, we learn that she would honor Xin by singing with the Illuminators at his memorial. That dialogue was a small teaser for this comic. The Illuminators are basically a religious group in Demacia that focuses on helping those in need. Lux regularly volunteers with them, or used to, or I mean will volunteer in the future. She does it in the old present, but in the new present she has yet to do it.
Today we set his likeness in stone, so all who pass by may see not only the man, but the glorious ideals he served. Let his name be spoken always with pride and reverence. For though flesh may fail, legends never die.
It is a wondrous thing. The king's artisans toiled for many months.
Obvious reference aside, here we have a statue honoring Xin, and we can see that next to him is a young Silverwing. According to Yunara, it's been months since she arrived in Demacia. In other words, months since the events of the season cinematic and her comic.
It is good that he be remembered here this way.
Here she is referring to how Demacians don't know the real story behind his death.
To dedicate this magnificent statue, Lady Sona Bouvel has composed a traditional lamentarion for Xin Zhao. Accordingly, the Blessed Order of Illuminators shall accompany her in the tongue of his birthplace, Rykon.
And here we see Sona wearing the outfit of her latest skin, making it the second canon skin this season after Morgana's. As I said, the Illuminators will sing to honor Xin, but surprisingly, they'll do it in Ionian language, since Rykon is in Ionia. So I guess Lux must know how to speak it, at least a little bit, which is cool. And now we are going to see a gorgeous montage of all the characters remembering Xin fondly. Sona's magic can be seen dividing the panels. Her music has the magical ability to tap into people's emotions, so that's likely what's happening here. The first we see is the king who saw Xin as a brother. Then Tiana, who must have fought by his side countless times. I especially like how Tiana is portrayed in this comic. This and Demacia Rising really showed us another side of her character that we are not used to. We see young Sona with Xin. I'm pretty sure this is brand new, and that before we had never seen them interact. Regardless, this is very nice, as Xin was probably one of the few Ionians living in Demacia like Sona. Not to mention, he was also a victim of the Noxian Empire, like her. There's a lot of potential for a written story with these two, taking place in the past, if only Riot still did those. Then we see Lux and Xin at the library. In Demacia Rising, Lux did say that Xin always made people feel safe, and in Yunara's comic we learned that he loved to study, so it's not surprising that the two crossed paths at some point. and then we see Yunara reminiscing about fighting alongside him, the main story of last year. And finally, we see Shin's statue. Notice that amongst the leaves there is also a single pink petal, an obvious reference to his death in Twilight's End. I won't lie, this actually made me feel more for Shin's death than his actual death. Shin's story last year was a bit odd in my opinion. Every other character that interacted with him was someone he had basically just met. I wish we had seen more of his friendships in Demacia, so we could have seen more of the man he was and what he meant to other people. This way his death would have felt even more tragic.
The ceremony ends. The people say their goodbyes. This is not a land without magic. It is simply a land that has chosen to ignore it, even when it might nourish and strengthen their spirit. Maybe one day, that can change. For their sake, I hope so.
Here we see Yunara mentioning Demacia's views on magic. So far this hasn't been mentioned much this season, mostly because it just hasn't been the focus of the story. And obviously she's saying this while looking at Lux and Sona, who are both mages. The implication being that Yunara can sense their magic.
Farewell, Yunara of the Kinku. Know that you will always be welcome here in my kingdom.
My duty done. I take my leave at last. Hello again, my friend. I have so much to tell you.
The comic ends with Yunara back in the Kinku temple in Ionia, kneeling before a statue of Shin made out of branches, filled with spirit blossom flowers. Next to it we can even spot the armor he took off before he and Yunara went to the Temple of Twilight. To honor him, she has brought from Demacia what I believe is a silver wing feather. Very interesting to see this connection between him and the silver wings in both of his memorials, especially considering that Zahen too once had a silver wing-like body. And I just noticed this while editing, but this is likely the same feather that she picks up when she arrives in Demacia in her comic. Also worth mentioning that the Ionians use the spirit blossom flowers to commune with the dead, to have one last goodbye before their spirits transition to the afterlife. It's possible that that's what Yunara is going to do here, but speaking to someone who has passed away at their memorial or grave is also something that we do in real life. Another detail I noticed while editing is that this is likely the spirit blossom that Shin brought from Demacia. The sapling first appeared in the gardens of Demacia, then Shin brought it to Ionia, planted it near the Kinku temple, it then grew, and from its branches the Kinku forged a new handle for Shin's spear. So his memorial being next to this tree is like a full circle moment. One last thing to mention here is that this reminded me of when Shin arrived in Ionia and he and Canon passed through a statue of Yunara's legend. Now Shin himself will also live on. He too will be remembered, in both Demacia and Ionia, as someone who fought to protect those in need. And that was it for this new comic. It was probably my favorite one this season. The art, script, voice acting and soundtrack were all really well done, though I was surprised that the comic didn't continue Sona's story from the cinematic. I really hope we eventually learn more about whatever was going on there. Did I miss anything? Let me know down below. And consider subscribing if you haven't already. It's free and you can always change your mind later. I'm Twisted and I'll see you guys in the next video.